They say a man's home is his castle, but in my case, it felt more like a battlefield, especially once she moved in. I've lived on Cedar Brook Lane, going on 23 years now. Bought this little brick ranch after retiring from the fire department. Quiet neighborhood, oak-lined streets, the kind of place where your neighbor waves at you when you're mowing your lawn and maybe brings you a pie if they overbake. That's how it used to be. For the HOA board got overtaken by a woman named Karen Litchfield. I remember the day she moved in like it was yesterday. She pulled up in a spotless black BMW SUV, stepping out in kitten heels like she was inspecting a country club instead of a cul-de-sac. Designer sunglasses, Bluetooth headset still in her ear, and a clipboard tucked under her arm. I should have known she wasn't here to make friends. She was here to take charge. My trouble started simple. Just a cracked mailbox post. It had seen better years. Sure, but I replaced the wood, painted it up nice, even added a little flag holder. Thought that was the end of it. That is, until I came outside one morning to find the whole thing snapped off against splinters all over my gravel. At first I figured a delivery truck must have clipped it. No big deal. But when it happened again the next weekend, this time, tire tracks curved right through the edge of my lawn. I started putting two and two together. So I did the obvious thing. Checked my old trail cam mounted near the tool shed. Nothing fancy, just enough to catch deer wandering through at night. I rewound the footage, squinting at grainy shadows. And there it was. 4:17 a.m., Karen's SUV, turning just a little too wide past my property line, her front right tire crunching over the box like it was tissue paper. Not once, twice. Same maneuver, same speed. I even saw her brake lights flicker, like she hesitated and then kept going. I didn't confront her right away. I'm not one to start fires unless I plan to put M out myself. So instead, I printed a still frame of the video and slid it into a clear sleeve. I attached it to a new post, this time steel core, under the wood on, stapled the photo right above the mailbox. Figured that'd send the message clear enough. Wrong. The next morning, the mailbox was bent at a 45-degree angle. The picture, torn and tossed into my recycling bin. No note, no apology, just silence. That's when I knew this wasn't a mistake. It was war. Now let me tell you something about Karen. She didn't just sit on the HOA board, she was the board, president, secretary, treasurer, and queen bee. She had the kind of fake smile that came with lawsuits and late fees. She used to knock on people's doors to tell them their trash cans were visibly tired. She'll find my buddy Walter, $150, because his garden hose wasn't coiled. And now, apparently, she was on a crusade against my mailbox. I tried to be civil, called the HOA's complaint line, left a message, nothing. Wrote a formal letter, attached stills from my camera. No response. Finally, I stopped her one afternoon when she was checking her mail-perfect nails, earbuds still in. Karen, I said, you've hit my mailbox 3 times. I've got the footage. I'd appreciate it if you stayed clear of the edge. She didn't flinch. Just pulled one butt out and said, if your mailbox is where it's supposed to be, I wouldn't be hitting it. It is where it's supposed to be. It's been there for 20 years. She smiled. Then maybe it's time to modernize. And walked off. That night, I stared at the dented post from my front window, sipping coffee I'd made too bitter on purpose. I thought about every HOA meeting she ran like a courtroom. Thought about the neighbor who got threatened with a lien over mismatched shingles. And I thought about all the mornings I walked out just to see splinters where my mailbox used to be. That's when I decided, if Karen wanted to keep playing chicken with my property, then let's see what happens when the chicken bites back. I spent the next 3 days researching everything I could. Looked up the municipal code, double-checked USPS regulations on mailbox placement, height, distance from the curb, and impact requirements. I called the local postmaster, confirmed every rule twice. I even printed the specs. Then I started building, not just a mailbox, a statement. I went down to McCormick Steelworks and picked up a 6-foot steel pipe, galvanized reinforced, the kind they use for trailer hitches and cattle fencing. I set it into a 4-foot concrete base, sunk beneath fresh gravel. Around it, I placed decorative brick that matched my house, and added a cast-iron mailbox box I'd found at an estate auction. The thing weighed nearly 80 pounds and had engravings on the sides and old bald eagle motif. Looked like something from a Civil War battlefield, but it was 100% regulation height, 100% legal setback, and 100% immovable. Before sealing it in, I wrapped the inside of the steel pipe with foam-padded concrete mesh. Just enough to absorb minor bumps without damaging someone's vehicle. But if someone rammed it, well, that'd be on them. I christened it the last box, and then I waited. 3 nights passed with nothing. 4th night, I saw headlights from my upstairs window. Same angle, same SUV. It swerved just a touch too far right, and then bang. The whole house didn't shake, but it sounded like it did. I ran outside with my phone. Sure enough, there it was. Karen's BMW, front end mashed in like a soda can. Her front right wheel was cocked at a strange angle, and steam hissed from beneath the hood. The last box stood perfectly straight, Not even scratched. Karen was in the driver's seat, frozen, eyes wide, hands gripping the wheel like she'd just seen a ghost. I walked up, calm as ever. "You all right there?" I asked. She didn't speak. "Looks like you hit a mailbox." Again, she opened her mouth, then closed it. "Don't worry," I said, pulling out the USPS spec sheet. "It's all regulation. Want me to call a tow truck?" She slammed her door and punched in numbers on her phone, muttering something about lawyers and dangerous setups. I just leaned back on my fence and waited. The next day, I got a letter taped to my door. Not a bill, not a fine, not even a warning. It was a formal legal complaint filed by the HOA against me claiming I had installed an intentionally hazardous mailbox fixture with the express intent to cause vehicle damage. The kicker, they wanted me to remove I face liability for repairs. I laughed harder than I had in months, but deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Karen had money, influence, a lawyer on retainer. And now, she had a vendetta. You'd think smashing her own front end into a legal regulation mailbox would be enough to stop her. But no, Karen came back with a vengeance. The very next morning, I was served an official notice from the HOA, letterhead, legalese, and all. It accused me of creating a malicious obstruction, intentionally endangering the safety of HOA members. And get this, harboring intent to cause vehicular damage for the purposes of retaliation. I chuckled when I read that last part. Sounded like she'd been watching too many crime dramas. But it didn't stop there. The notice gave me 72 hours to remove my mailbox or face, escalated legal action, and compensatory liability. It was signed, of course, by Karen Litchfield, HOA president and certified menace. Now I've seen a lot of fires in my day, literal and otherwise. But there's a special kind of heat that rises when someone tries to tear apart your dignity, brick by brick, just because they can't control you. I'd played nice, I'd followed the rules. But Karen wasn't interested in rules. She was interested in domination, so I lawyered up. His name was Dan Palmer, retired county judge, now working part-time for the good folks of our area. Grew up here, fished these lakes, mowed these same ditches. I handed him everything, the mailbox spec sheet, the trail cam footage, the time-stamped photos of the wrecked BMW, and the HOA's eviction of Steel Post Order, as we started calling it. Dan looked over the paperwork, sipped his black coffee, and said, "Son, this isn't a lawsuit. This is a tantrum with a stapler." We were scheduled to appear at a mandatory HOA grievance hearing on a warm Thursday morning. I showed up in boots and a clean flannel. Karen rolled up in her backup Carsom, red Lexus coupe with vanity plates that read HOA QT1. No joke. Room was full. Neighbors I hadn't seen in months. Folks who'd been fined over garden gnomes, whose fence paint didn't reflect the community palette, or whose porch light bulbs were not HOA-approved wattage. These people knew what I was going through. Karen had left her fingerprints on all of them. She called the meeting to order like a court proceeding. This hearing is to address a homeowner's defiance of HOA Code Section 12.4, unsafe mailbox structures and retaliatory installations. Dan raised his hand. "Madam President, we've reviewed Section 12.4 and found no such language. In fact, according to the township ordinances," Karen interrupted, "we operate under community standard clauses, not outdated ordinances." Stated ordinances. When people hear my voice and conversational, when the room began to murmur, Dan laid out the evidence, showed the spec sheet, confirmed the legal dimensions. He even brought a measuring wheel. Then, he pulled out the trail cam video and set it up on a little laptop. The room went quiet as Karen's SUV played on loop, swerving, crunching, fleeing. Then came the silence. Karen didn't blink. This footage is circumstantial. It could be anyone's SUV. Don leaned in, calm and cold. The license plate's visible. Karen turned red. Even if it was mine, it proves nothing. The box was placed deliberately maliciously legal. Dan said. Karen stood up, trembling with righteous fury. "You can't keep that thing there. It's threatening, it's hostile, it's a danger to the community." From the back, a voice called out, "It's more stable than our HOA leadership." Laughter, real belly-deep laughter from folks who'd been cowed for too long. Karen slammed the gavel. Yes. She brought, "1. This is disorderly." Then, one by one, the neighbors began speaking. First, it was Doreen, who said Karen made her remove the sunflowers from her side yard. Then Jerry, who got fined $50 for parking his fishing boat 2 feet too far up the driveway. Then it was Ms. Patel, who said Karen threatened to report her for excessive ethnic landscaping. Whatever the hell that means. The whole room turned. Dan leaned toward her and said softly, "Ma'am, if you want to file an actual lawsuit, I'll be happy to meet you in real court. But I guarantee you, you will lose." Karen's lip trembled. Her hand hovered near the gavel. She didn't hit it, she just stood, shook her head, and walked out flanked by silence. The next day, I received a formal letter of retraction from the HOA, stating that my mailbox installation was deemed in compliance with neighborhood standards, and that no further action would be taken. Karen. She stepped down as HOA president 2 weeks later. Rumor was, the board asked her to resign after a very long closed-door vote. She sold her house not long after that. BMW still wrecked. I guess her insurance didn't cover stubborn mailbox retaliation. The funny thing is, after she left, nobody else on the block ever touched that mailbox. Not once, not a scratch. It's still standing to this day, heavy as justice and twice as satisfying. Epilogue. A few months later, I got a knock on my door. It was Walter from 2 houses down, holding a 6-pack of root beer and a grin. "Think you could help me build one of those tanks for a mailbox?" he asked. I grinned. "Sure, but fair warning, you run into mine, and yours'll lose." We both laughed. I still walk past that post every morning. Still run my hand over the Iron Eagle. Not because I need a reminder, but because sometimes the best revenge is letting the truth stand tall while the lies collapse. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around. I've got more wild HOA tales coming your way. This is at HOA Karen Stories-F58, where justice wears work boots, and Karen never sees it coming.